Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VCTV. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, and we are here today to speak about cybersecurity and, more importantly, security in general. We've had a number of times in the past week or two that we've spoken about this topic around security and privacy and data because we have so much more data. We have so many more devices. We're also in a situation where we're working from home or remotely more than we ever have before. However, cybersecurity is still rarely talked about, but it's an increasingly growing concern and something we do need to speak about. And as investors, we need to not only understand the opportunities of where and how this industry is going to develop and where we can be placing our bets, but also what should we be looking at the companies that we may be investing in and their security practices around data, privacy, and customers as well. So as we do here on VCTV, we brought together the best and the brightest from around the world who are in fact focused on this area to share with you their thoughts and insights along with on the ground perspective around today's topic, cybersecurity and other different technologies, industries, and regions around the world. If you'd like to be on a show like today's as an investor to speak and share your thoughts, do reach out along with entrepreneurs. We have a virtual stage here for you at VCTV for you to pitch us your company, product, or service, get real-time feedback, build relationships with us as investors and with the entire VCTV community. Reach out and we'll find the right spot for you. A big thank you to the LATOKEN team, or the LATOKEN team, pardon me, and to Maria for making VCTV possible every single day. With that, I'm your host, Kyle, and let's go ahead and introduce our guest for today. A regular here and someone who loves cybersecurity. Raghu, welcome back to the show. A little intro and a little background.
Thank you, Kyle and VCTV. Pleasure to be here. I'm a serial entrepreneur, angel investor, and business mentor from Princeton, New Jersey. I have a consulting practice called Harvesting Enterprises. We help companies from seed to harvest, with execution, exit, using a virtual team. And cybersecurity is one of my passions. I'm also currently operationally engaged with a cybersecurity startup called Split Byte, which we'll talk about later. It's a totally different approach to cybersecurity. We are like a vaccine for data as opposed to kind of preventive and reactive solutions, which seem to be the only norm in this space. So look forward to a great conversation.
Wonderful. Thank you, Raghu. And David, welcome to the show. First time guest with Maria and I here on VCTV. It's a pleasure to have you. If you can, a little intro and a little background, and you're on mute, just to let you know. There you go.
Yeah, well, first of all, let me thank you guys for having me on. It looks like we've got some experts on, so I'll try my best to kind of keep up. But yeah, so a little bit of a background about myself. Based in the UK, I was born in Australia, was a fund manager for about 10 years, living in Central America, Panama for a while. And we had operations in the US and Canada and also London. And I kind of got involved in the very early stages of what we now know as the FANG stocks. So, moving away from those kind of juggernauts of the old days of the IBMs and the Oracles and Ciscos, and kind of finding this new wave of technology, which was mainly kind of like scary and, all about mobile data. And as you can imagine, cybersecurity and things like that, was a big thing. We were moving away from these kind of data-centered held, if you like, infrastructures where people were comfortable because they could kick their server under the desk, and obviously moving into things like cloud and with AWS and the others, it was kind of I think anybody that was back in that space, 10, 20 years ago, they will remember those conversations very well. People saying, well, where's that data? It's in the cloud. And like, well, I don't know, where's the cloud? So bringing things full circle. I run a crypto-centric VC. Started that about 4 years ago, called 08 Capital. There's a logic to that name. It's mainly because in 2008 we had a pretty rough period, and so that was kind of quite a novel year and had a meaning to me. So yeah, we've invested in around 50 different projects, probably in total, I guess maybe $20 million in total. So quite a bit of money. More recently, we've pivoted more into accelerating and incubating kind of startups. And, so kind of the three main areas is investing in companies at different stages and then really helping them to incubate. And obviously, the bigger any market grows, data, security of data is so apparently, apparently important. I'm not sure that's the right word, but anyway,
I'll give it to you.
Paramount of importance. There we go. And so, yeah, obviously, I think having these types of conversations with other experts and stuff is really, really useful. So I'm certainly interested in learning as much as everybody else today. So thanks again for having me here.
Wonderful. Thank you as well, David. And honestly, looking forward to hearing from you and learning from you as well today, because one of the things that you and Raghu both mentioned, just to reset the stage for everyone here, is, the topic is cybersecurity, but really what it boils down to is security as a whole, right? Whether that's security and privacy around our data, our devices, or ourselves, in a personal life and in a professional life as well. And David, you brought up a great point. A lot of what we do today is sent to the cloud, but where is the cloud? What is the cloud? There's a lot of questions around that. And if anything, what we're starting to see is a trend, a long trend, by the way, but something that's beginning to surface here in 2021 is the idea of moving towards a more decentralized and distributed storage and kind of cloud manner as well, which will change that paradigm even more and make security even more important as well. And so before we get into those fun, exciting topics, Raghu, kind of set the stage for us. What do you see is the current state of security or cybersecurity from your viewpoint, having really been an expert in the space for so many years?
Thank you, Kyle, and welcome, David. I think some of the main issues with cybersecurity are insider threats. If you kind of look at most of the incidents, usually it starts with some kind of insider compromise, whether it's intentional or inadvertent. The insider threat is a very big component of cybersecurity because it's kind of like you have a lock on your house, and if you have a code, how did that code leak out if somebody else gets in, right? So that's kind of perimeter security, as we call it, right? So there is security about now that we have this social media and all these different avatars of people, identity theft is another aspect of it, right? So data breaches have been a huge aspect of cybersecurity, given the amount of data that's being generated, and a lot of this data is generated without our knowing that we generated the data. It's like on our systems, like cookies or all kinds of stuff. Every interaction that you're doing, operation, is kind of logged somewhere. And so the privacy is one aspect of it. The other aspect is the whole securing your identity, right? So what I wanted to talk about the cloud, I think, was a good aspect of it, is that the public infrastructures now, the cloud is become very well established. So there is a good process there for people to leverage the cloud. Sitting in your home, you can write to any part of the world, and there's all these laws are matured. But what hasn't quite happened is that it's still about the threats that haven't changed, right? Like if you take the medical analogy, we have the kind of so-called prophylactics, which prevent you from getting an infection. And then there is the therapeutics, which if you get an infection, you take it to kind of treat your infection. But the holy grail is what we're all waiting for, is a vaccine, where even if you're exposed, you don't get infected. That concept needs to be applied more to cybersecurity. Unfortunately, the current technology is all reactive, which is like more like a therapeutic, or preventive, which is like prophylactics. What we need is a vaccine, and that's what my focus is actually. And we're working on this in a company called SplitByte. What it does is it takes the data and then randomizes it, kind of a cipher without a key, using a key, and then buries it away into the cloud or on-prem, wherever you want it. We just bury it away, kind of. And then if you need to retrieve it, you kind of bring it back together, and you need to know where things are. And it's not enough if you breach one system, you get nothing. If you breach two systems, you get nothing. If your model is like 5 systems minimum threshold to get the data back, and maybe total redundant thing is eight system, 5 out of 8, then you have to compromise 5 different systems and then know how to put it back together. So the analogy I give is like the Horcrux for Voldemort, where you can't just kill the guy from one place. You need to know, kind of go back and find. So it's adding the security by obscurity part, but in a distributed way. So it's combining distribution along with this thing. So it handles the insider threat, because some of these things, even the admins in the company will not know, because you're distributing it to multiple locations. So which is a very big component of cybersecurity. So I think that is one. The second threat that's emerged recently is this whole quantum computing, which especially with state actors involved, they have a lot of raw power to break the encryption, and some of the encryption is already broken, and others will, the traditional ones are going to get broken soon. So by adding this distributed layer, we are really addressing the quantum computing aspect as well. So I'll let it go at this point. So.
No, I think that's a great point. I mean, the distributed fashion is one, and then quantum. We've talked a little bit about that. You and I, and even Gary Fowler, one of our regular guests here on VCTV, have spoken about the power that is coming with quantum computing. I mean, today it's in kind of a smaller fashion, or limited fashion, I should say, but it is something that we do need to be aware of. Which may be down the line here sooner than later. But David, I want to come to you. Thank you, Raghu. David, I want to come to you around a similar question as what you see as the current state of security and how things have evolved over the past couple of years, leading us to, again, where we are today here in the early of 2021.
Yeah, thanks again. So I think there's two things here. I think we could look at the traditional space, and obviously, anybody that follows politics, and let's not get into politics, I think that's a dangerous ground, but that's been a big focus of the last 4 years in the US, as we know. And I think one lesson we can take from that is you're not going to be able to be 100% secure, because there's too many people out there that are smarter than us, right? And they've got all the resources and all the finances behind them, and it's like almost the space war, right? This is now kind of the data information war, and so I think if you bear that in mind, then you need to be educated and understand that, and therefore you have more chance of being, I guess, secure. If you look at more the cryptocurrency or blockchain space, the investment space, which is really, that's where we should focus, I guess. I think there's huge strides. Now, quantum computing, as an example, is huge because it speeds everything up. And we know because of that speed up, that kind of fulfills the mindset of humanity right now. I mean, people inherently, I would say, are lazy in terms of wanting information, wanting, responses immediately. And we have that. You go back 10 years ago, look at the information that was available to you compared to today. And so I think the biggest challenge here, and if you look at some of the projects that I'm kind of interested in, looking at things like mobile coin, they're aware of the fact that most people now are interacting with their mobile phones. Most people will spend more time trading, investing, collating, and then transferring data through mobile devices of some form or another. And there's a lot of vulnerabilities in that, and so you have to really start looking at those types of products and those types of companies that recognize, where we're going and how they're going to do stuff like that. And, going back to what Raghu was saying, and I agree, excuse me, the old days, it was kind of, you had like a secret code or something for a safe, and you'd split that into maybe 5 or 6 different places on a piece of paper, and you'd put that in 5 or 6 different safes. Now we're kind of doing it in a digital way. And I think there's a lot of evidence out there now of how people can use data protection. And it just comes down to actually not being lazy. And that doesn't safeguard you, because I'm a believer that, if they want to get your information, they'll find a way. But 99.9% of us are not bad actors, right? So, this is really more around, look, if I'm investing, how can I do things best practice to make sure that my money's secure? If I'm transacting, don't do it tired. Make sure that you send tests and just do some best practices things. So, Raghu mentioned he's working or very involved in a project. I think there's a lot of projects out there now. Even Coinbase is an example. They're working on cybersecurity. They're working on trying to, make people's wallets and things like that as secure as possible. And so I think the future's bright, but we always have to be, I think we just need to put an element of personal, if you like, responsibility on ourselves, just to be smart about what we do, and then you're probably 99% of the time you're safe.
And that's a great point. And back on the distributed side, I mean, are you seeing anything exciting or coming up around things like distributed storage and distributed computing? As we mentioned, that might be a power play here in the future of security. I mean, quantum again is going to probably destroy a lot of these opportunities that we're putting together in terms of having to rethink how they are being thought about today. But David, having invested in this space, and I believe you said 50 different projects, have you seen anything around storage or compute that might be applicable to the future of security around applications?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of companies out there that are looking at it. But, this is investment world. So, typically the hype is first and then like the practicalities come second. So I think what we are starting to see is as the space is really, developing and growing at such a fast race, things like security and distribution of that information, so that you've got more secured kind of structures and stuff, is obviously becoming more relevant. I think people also starting to realize that you need to be more secure if you've got more money at play. So yeah, absolutely. I would say that it's not. I wouldn't say right now it's a sector that people would see as sexy. Maybe it never would, but it's definitely going to be one that when you start getting big institutional players coming into the market, right? Custody is a huge part of that. As a fund, you have to make sure that you have, the administration and the custody, perfectly structured in terms of data communication. And so, yeah, most of these companies have processes in place to help in that way. And then people like what Raghu's doing, his product and other people that are the experts in that space, they're going to become more and more relevant as this market increases in terms of market cap size, because just the size of wealth, needs to be protected. And, working with regulators, insurance providers and custodial services, I think that's going to be a huge play moving forward. So definitely an area I'm interested in looking at more.
Absolutely. I'm going to hold on that as well, because I could go down that rabbit hole with you for quite a bit. There's so much great stuff in there, and in terms of from custody to being your own bank or kind of owning that financial world for you. I mean, security plays a huge function into that story. But I want to hold for that in just a second. And Raghu, I want to come back to you. Thank you, David. Raghu, I want to come back to you around the health sector. So you do a lot of work as well around health, bio, and pharma, looking at security and how security has advanced over, again, the past couple of years. What are you seeing as some upcoming trends as we look to the year ahead around the health, bio, and pharma industries, and why security is now more important than ever in those sectors?
Frozen.
Oh, you are frozen, but we can still hear you. So
okay, that's fine. Then I'm not able to unmute myself. I thought, okay, so I think there are different parts of the cybersecurity stack. As we all know, there's the high-level data protection, privacy aspect, and then identity management. Then there is stuff like cloud security, which is itself a very huge space. Cloud security, orchestration, remediation. There is network security, which is, because everything is distributed, and to do that, you need a lot of network hardware and software. Then there is edge security. We have all these things like drones and things that are coming up. All of us use mobile devices, So there is different aspects to security. Then there is something called OT, just like IT, information technology. We have something called operational technology, which is all these things like hospital devices and nuclear plant devices, things that are computer based but not necessarily like a laptop or a desktop. So there's all different parts of the cybersecurity stack. And as I mentioned, a lot of these are kind of preventive and reactive type of things. And now with the distributed aspect coming in play, I think that sector is going to have a lot of disruption happening, right? And then there is all compliance. We have all these standards for compliance, which, as David alluded to, there is best practices involved. And so I think there is a lot of compliance things, but people were mostly doing it as a checkbox. We have to make some of these things really, like the fines have to be higher, which is happening with the privacy laws, for instance. The fines are a lot higher. It's not just based on a per incident, but based on your revenues and things like that. So it hits you pretty hard, right? So the amount of data loss and which damage, which includes things like reputation and all that, runs in the trillions just because of cybersecurity breaches. So this is not something that we can ignore. It's become a core part of our lives, right? Especially after the pandemic, things have accelerated now. So everybody has to put cybersecurity in all the company boards that I'm part of. There is a cybersecurity is a specific thing that they have to kind of address, in terms of their board, position. So I think it is become an essential aspect of our lives. The privacy part is coming soon because the size of the data is, as I said, we have to get it under control, right? So I see that this cybersecurity area needs to be melded with AI because AI is another enabling technology. So the melding of that will enable us to be much smarter about things. This thing I talked about, like split by the distribution, right? Distribution is one aspect. Using AI, which can detect anomalies, right? That which regular human operator might miss. So it will detect, and then these are a lot of them are recommender systems. Not that they will automatically do things. Maybe they might do some preventive things, but they will just alert somebody, a human, to go forward and pay attention to something that's happening. Because these things, we cannot have an audit like once a month or once in a quarter kind of audits. We need it every day because things are happening every second, literally. So.
Yeah, I mean, every second, every millisecond, right? It continues to fractionize in an exciting way, but also to your point, things are just speeding up, Raghu, as well. And David, I want to come back to you around this idea of custody, and then also, again, people becoming their own bank or handling much more of their financial future in their hands. And we throw security into the mix of this. I mean, where does this go? Right? Where are the opportunities that people should be thinking about or focusing on over the next few years from your viewpoint as custody starts to take shape, and also as we get more our financial future in our hands than we have in the past?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to put it into perspective, you've got people like JP Morgan, some of these very large institutions, banks, and they're looking to the cryptocurrency space and the cybersecurity intelligence that comes from that to really help them in terms of their operations. And that tells you a lot. What that tells you is they may have the regulatory side covered, they have the insurance side covered, and obviously they have the banking in terms of the day-to-day practice of being able to do if you like Swift payments and things like that. But it also tells you that they recognize there's a lot of shortcomings within their own ecosystem, their own infrastructure. And so what that tells us is it's coming in a big way. We're talking trillions and trillions of dollars that are going to be transacted using cybersecurity platforms within the cryptocurrency blockchain. And what that tells me, and what that should be telling us as individuals, not only as users, but also potentially as people that might want to look at potential investment in this space, is where can I start seeing value in terms of improvements in my day-to-day banking and transacting of payments. And anybody that uses the cryptocurrency already for transacting of payments already knows that it's fast, it's cheap, it's instantaneous. In many cases, it's peer-to-peer, so there's no third party getting involved. And you know that's a fantastic side to the user experience right now. But what it also tells you is this is only going to get bigger and become more integrated into what we do. So, you know, for me, it's a very exciting future. Right now, I'm looking for any people or organizations that have the ability to bridge those two worlds, if you like. So, you know, I'd be looking at some of these large organizations right now, you know, in terms of who they're currently using, you know, who they're looking at, what they're currently using themselves. Now, in terms of the traditional space, you know, Oracle, and people may surprise because in the crypto world, you know, everyone knows that the Ethereum blockchain has the most developers than any other blockchain. But if you knew how many, you know, developers that are at Oracle and it's, you know, all these major players, including the banks, you'd be amazed. You know, we're talking hundreds of thousands of people. And what that tells me is, you know, they're taking the best of breed and using their own infrastructure. And they're going to be going into this in a big, big way. So I think the future is extremely bright, and it has to be because, you know, just think about how small the market is. If you compare it to, you know, the traditional markets and how much money is being sent, you know, I think trillions and trillions of dollars are transacted in foreign exchange every single day. And this is going to be, this is all going to be integrated into the blockchain because it's so much faster. And it's so much more, you know, clean in terms of how you transact. But the cybersecurity side of it, you know, that's still to be maybe completely fleshed out, as Raghu's mentioned. So yeah, I mean, for me, the future is extremely bright, and it's definitely going to be, you know, probably I would say after the end of this, making a bit of a projection here, because I could be wrong, but I think after this next kind of wave, and we're obviously going through this kind of bull market right now, I think the next wave will be very much more around securitization of assets, and, you know, cybersecurity is going to be a big part of this, because the market's just too big right now. You know, you can't afford to have, you know, billion-dollar organizations getting hacked and people losing all these funds and stuff. So, you know, that's one of the biggest issues why regulatory bodies are getting involved. You know, people always are critical, saying it's all about tax, and of course it is. But at the same time, you know, they're trying to protect us as best we can from good and bad actors. You know, and so yeah, I mean, Raghu probably be on this call in about 10 years and telling you about how he grew his business to be, you know, $1 billion company, no doubt.
I can't wait. We'll
No
both
pressure.
we'll both yeah, we'll both be investors in it as well. So Raghu, thank you, David. With that, Raghu, where do you see the areas of opportunity looking at the few years ahead in front of us here around cybersecurity and security as a whole? I mean, you threw quantum in there, you threw AI out there as well, and things we need to be aware of and also paired with when we're thinking about security. But if you're looking to lay your bets over the next, you know, 3 to 5 years, if you're looking to also encourage founders as to where they should be building or pieces they should be fixing in terms of products, what are you putting out there as areas of opportunity in the coming years?
Yeah, I just want to point out like what Peter Diamandis says, right? Exponential, everything is becoming exponential, right? So the quantum and the AI are part of it because it's going beyond the human, individual human's capacity, right? But the idea is those things have to help the human, you know, make the right decisions and, you know, help with, you know, not only decisions, but protection is one aspect, right? The security protection. So I feel that the technologies will meld with each other. You know, AI and distribution computing, quantum computing, many of these things will come together because cybersecurity is one application area that's horizontal. For anything you do digital, you need it. And of course, it will be additionally helping with physical security as well, the things like identity management and, you know, other things, right? The physical aspect as well. So anything really in cybersecurity, platform technologies are going to be, like there's a lot of investment coming in. It's a crowded space and just pure like, network security. If you take some of these older areas, which are more preventive, right? The firewalls and all that. A lot of companies are providing end-to-end solutions. That is the kind of thing. Instead of being one niche player, let's say in network security, somebody is going to come in and say end-to-end, which covers a lot of the stack, like I told you, right? So, but the trick there is to look to see, is it kind of inch deep and mile wide, or is it like really, only mile deep in some places, but other places are exposed too much, right? So, selecting the cybersecurity company or the solution, you have to kind of be very careful, because everybody claims to be everything, now. So you have to have a little bit of discrimination to see, especially for the particular type of data that you have. See, there is so-called dark data. This is data that you create without even knowing you're creating, and you never even look at it in most cases, like things like cookies and all kinds of other stuff that as a part of your interaction you're creating. And then there is kind of rarely used data that you create. It could be like a photo that you take somewhere, and you maybe look at it 2-3 times, right? Initially, as soon as you take it, you look at it, and then maybe when you are going back and looking at things, after a few years or something. So there's that kind of data. There's a proliferation of a lot of these media data, which are mostly read-only, get looked at maybe once or twice, reports that you create, and things like tax returns, which are based on time events. Again, a tax return from 10 years ago doesn't mean much to most people, unless for some reason you have to look back at it. But in the wrong hands, it can have your private data, and somebody can exploit you, take over your identity. So 90, I would say 80% of the data that's being created is very rarely used. I mean, some of it is never used again, and that would be like 50%. Another 25% is very rarely used, and then the other 25%, there is 5% which is super sensitive data, like your passwords and things like your tax returns and stuff like that, which are contain actually really sensitive data. And then there is a last whatever 20%, which is things that you use on a daily basis, right, as part of your work. It may be the system that you're using, like if it is in the hospital, they use like a record management system for patients, EMR and things like that, which are like in daily use, right? And even there, the similar kind of distribution will happen. Some of the data will never get touched again. And so privacy comes in. Is very important to know what kinds of data that you have and what type of security need for each type of data. And so not only security, privacy. See, we haven't touched a lot on privacy. Privacy is extremely important, because with all the data that we have, we can cull the data from that and utilize it, without the identifying information. And especially things like in healthcare, there is so much data that can be utilized to, with all the big data that's available now, to provide solutions in so many spaces, drug discovery, diagnostics, and things like that. But the key is to not, let the private information get out. So we have things like our, the Fitbit or the Apple Watch or whatever you're wearing. It knows about everything you're doing, and it's like we all look at the privacy data. I mean, privacy agreement, we'll just click saying agree. We don't know exactly what data is being shared. And it would be a surprise later on that, they're able to track pretty much everything that you're doing. And all this thing about WhatsApp's change in security policy, at this point, it's too late. If you have used WhatsApp, they already know what you're doing, right? So I think that one of the big things, although it went back to politics in some way, is that I think the policy in terms of who, lots of people are gathering data, how they use it, and the who controls, what data can be shared. That is the aspect of, which comes under the privacy aspect, not just the security. That is, I think, extremely important. In the future, you will see that happening, because now many of these techs, the big techs as we call them, they all own so much data, the Googles and the Facebooks, And we have to figure out how we can protect ourselves in terms of that any sensitive aspects getting leaked. So privacy is, I think I would say, a very big part of cybersecurity going forward.
Absolutely. And thank you, Raghu. David, I want to come to you for closing thoughts and then also where you can be found online for those that are looking to continue the conversation, but also wanting to talk to you about your investments and the companies you've invested in. But first, closing thoughts and then where you can be found.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, I mean, I think just to close up, obviously we know this is a growing space. It has close affinity to privacy. We already know, that's kind of how crypto kind of almost started, outside of Bitcoin with the likes of Dash and Monero and these other types of transactions. I think the reality for me is we're going into a new world, and privacy, whether we like it or not, it's never going to be the same way as it once was. Governments, unfortunately, I've never met a government that takes and gives away power. The more they take, the more they ask. So and whether that's taxation or whether that's governance or whatever it might be. So in my opinion, unfortunately, I don't think we're ever going to go back to having more privacy. I think for us, therefore, there's an onus on us to be smart about what we're putting out there, right? And so, if you bare your soul, then that information is going wherever you have no idea where that information is going. So just be diligent and be self-controlled and be smart about what you do. But nonetheless, we have to accept it, whether that comes from personal information, whether that comes to financial information or records, whatever. Either way, I think cryptocurrency for me is going to be the forefront. Blockchain is going to be the forefront of how this develops. Governments, big institutions, we already mentioned, they're all over this space. Despite what they may tell you, they're all over this space. And obviously governments and governance and tax is just one aspect of that. In terms of I guess, what I'm interested in from an investment perspective right now, and mentioning kind of what Raghu, just following on from what Raghu was saying, I kind of agree too. You can't be so specific, just saying, hey, I'm just going to look at cybersecurity as an example, or privacy. I think you need to start looking at, all of these new technologies that are coming out. Obviously AI, NFTs are a really big thing right now in terms of, collectibles and stuff, and people just having those user experiences, VR and things like that, which I guess is a side of AI. Quantum computing, pretty much everything's going faster, quicker. We want it all now. We want visualization, stimulation. And so, I'd be looking for companies and projects right now that are really in those spaces, because cybersecurity and privacy is going to be part of it. It's going to be that option. And so I wouldn't be so specific at thinking, right, let's wait for just a project or an investment that's so specifically focused on that particular vertical. I'd look at an organization that was kind of in the whole AI, quantum computing, that type of thing, because they have to have cybersecurity, and they will have to have some element of privacy within that. And so you're benefiting from all of the growth opportunities within that, and you're not kind of pushing yourself down to one space that may take some time, or maybe not quite work out in terms of investment. So for me, that's kind of where we do, that's where our focus is. We're looking at we're looking at those projects right now that have a number of different verticals to offer to the investor. So for myself, a big focus in terms of that. And yeah, did you want me to go into kind of where I'm at, or should I leave it there and come back?
No, thank you. I mean, yeah, where can you be found online so that those in the audience that would like to connect with you afterwards can follow up and continue the conversation?
Yeah, so company mainly is TradeDog.io. So that's a website where we offer institutional grade investment reports, and also we have a quant desk, and we provide actually at the moment freemium signals. It's free to join. You can download. There's a lot of information in there. We also have an accelerator program called TDeFi, but the information is on the website, so you can find that through TradeDog.io.
Absolutely. Thank you as well, David. And Raghu, close us out. Where can you be found online for those looking to continue the conversation with you after today?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn at Raghu S. Rao. And I apologize if you are having issues with my audio. I just had to switch to my mobile part because my screen is frozen. So I mean, this is an interesting conversation, and cybersecurity, you know, I think we're going to be keeping on hearing about this. And as the technology evolves, I look forward to, you know, being able to share that and also learn from others here. So, and VCTV is doing an amazing job of bringing people together to address issues that have become global right now.
Thank you very much, Raghu, and thank you, David, as well. Thank you both for sharing your thoughts and insights around today's topic. A lot more that we'll be continuing around this particular topic over the next week and into next week as well here on VCTV. And look forward to having both of you back to continue that discussion along with many others as well. And thank you to you, our audience, for tuning in. If you like what you heard, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up, do a share, and check out the archive to hear more from our speakers and all speakers that we bring together here on VCTV to share their thoughts and insights around different technologies, industries, and regions around the world as we dove into cybersecurity today. And entrepreneurs, if you'd like to be on a show like today and join us on the virtual stage, reach out and we'll find the right spot for you to pitch us your company, product, or service, get real-time feedback and exposure to the entire VCTV community. A big thank you to the LATOKEN team, apologies, and to Maria for making VCTV possible every single day. With that, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. You can find me online everywhere at Kyle Ellicott, along with both of our guests today, David and Raghu, on all social media platforms, as they mentioned as well. And when you do reach out, remember to add context, where you heard us, where you met us, and what you would like to continue the conversation about. With that, we'll be taking a short little break and be back here with more VCTV in just a moment. Thank you.